farrahferris digital representative here with a Substack video correction note paper. Video was not Card 2, accumulated behavioral identity, corrected reading copy for avatar delivery. The era of the static bio is losing force. A profile picture, a short description, and a polished resume no longer carry the same weight they once did. What increasingly matters is not just what a person claims, but the behavioral trail they leave behind over time. This is where accumulated behavioral identity enters the frame. Accumulated behavioral identity is not a claim that human identity can be reduced to a machine score. It is a structural observation that decisions, interpretive patterns, research habits, and consistency across time are becoming more important trust signals in a digital environment saturated with branding, automation, and synthetic media. What I refer to as the behavioral blueprint is this auditable pattern of behavior over time. It includes how someone filters noise, how they interpret information, how consistent their reasoning remains, and whether their output aligns with a stable methodological core. This does not mean behavior cannot be imitated at the surface. It means sustained interpretive consistency is harder to replicate convincingly over time than static presentation alone. In earlier internet culture, identity was often treated as aesthetic performance. I refer to that as status theater. In the current environment, that model is weakening. The market is moving toward evidence-based trust, where continuity, process, and pattern stability matter more than polished self-description. This is why metacognitive integrity matters. By that, I mean the alignment between how a person claims to think and the observable record of how they actually process information in public or semi-public digital space. The more fragmented the output, the greater the trust gap. The more coherent the behavioral pattern, the stronger the signal. This does not mean every platform is conducting a full and immediate audit. It means digital assessment is becoming increasingly automated, continuous, and data-rich. In that environment, inconsistent behavioral shifts become easier to detect, and stable interpretive patterns become more valuable. The same applies to voice. As visual media becomes easier to manipulate, voice becomes more important, not just as sound, but as logic, cadence, structure, and repeatable reasoning. I refer to this as acoustic sovereignty, the persistence of a recognizable intellectual signal across time, platforms, and formats. The central point is simple. We are moving from profile-based identity toward evidence-based identity, not perfectly, not universally, but directionally and materially. In the no-fluff era, trust is no longer built only on presentation. It is increasingly built on traceable behavior, methodological consistency, and signal quality over time. Correction, note, Card 2, accumulated behavioral identity. The original Card 2 draft argued that digital identity is shifting away from static self-description and toward behavior-based trust. That structural direction remains intact. This correction clarifies the boundaries of that claim. Accumulated behavioral identity does not mean that a person can be fully reduced to a machine-readable score. It does not mean behavioral identity is perfect, instant, or impossible to imitate. The stronger and more defensible position is narrower. In a digital environment saturated with branding, automation, and synthetic media, stable patterns of behavior are becoming more important trust signals than static presentation alone. A profile picture, a short bio, or a polished resume may still signal status, but they do not fully demonstrate how a person thinks, filters noise, or applies method over time. What increasingly matters is continuity, interpretive consistency, methodological coherence, research discipline, and the visible alignment between claimed logic and observable output. This is the basis of what I describe as the behavioral blueprint. It is an analytical term for the accumulated pattern of decisions, interpretive habits, and signal quality a person leaves across digital environments. It is not proof of absolute truth. It is a framework for understanding how trust is increasingly built in environments where visual and textual presentation can be cheaply synthesized. The same clarification applies to metacognitive integrity. This term refers to the degree of alignment between how someone claims to think and the record of how they actually process and present information. The more coherent that pattern remains across time, platforms, and subject matter, the stronger the trust signal becomes. This correction also clarifies the role of digital systems. The claim is not that every platform performs an immediate or total audit. The claim is that assessment is becoming more automated, more continuous, and more data-rich. In such an environment, abrupt inconsistency, fragmentation, and synthetic volatility become easier to detect. The broader conclusion remains the same. We are moving from profile-based identity toward evidence-based identity. Not perfectly, not universally, but materially enough that professionals, researchers, and creators should take the shift seriously. In the no-fluff era, trust is no longer built only on presentation. It is increasingly built on pattern stability, methodological consistency, provenance, and signal quality over time. Main write-up. This body of work is not just visual branding. It is live documentation of a structural build. For more than 2 months, I have been actively researching, testing, refining, and practicing the exact systems I am describing. I am not speaking from abstraction. I am documenting in real time while building the workflow itself. The avatar is part of that architecture. The cards are part of that architecture. The glossary system, the reverse side definitions, the digital description layers, the image sequencing, and the language discipline are all part of the same structural design. That matters. Because the point is not to post disconnected ideas. The point is to create structural inevitability from the beginning. Every card, every definition, every visual layer, and every recorded explanation is being built so that the work remains coherent across formats, across time, and across future expansion. That is how long-range identity architecture is formed, is not through random output, but through repeatable structure. There is sacrifice inside this process. I have invested the time to learn these tools, study these systems, and absorb the cost of building this workflow correctly. Even basic access is costing me hundreds per month, and that is before scale. But that cost is part of the documentation. I am practicing what I preach, building a verifiable body of work while simultaneously documenting the method used to build it. That is the real layer here. I am not just creating an avatar. I am creating an operational identity system through the avatar. I am showing how research, language, image architecture, glossary control, and repeated structural form can work together to establish continuity. The cards are not decoration, they are signal containers, and the effects are already real. Last night, even my dogs reacted to the avatar voice when it was talking about how well they were doing. They recognized it as me. That is not a trivial moment. That is technology crossing into lived environment. That is proof that voice architecture, identity mapping, and behavioral continuity now operate beyond the screen. The system is becoming real enough to affect the space around me. This is why I call it live documentation. I am not waiting until the end to explain the process. I am documenting while building. I am building while learning. And I am structuring the work from the start so that it can hold under pressure later. That is structural alignment. That is cognitive continuity. That is how inevitability is made. Avatar version. This is not just artwork. This is live documentation of a structural build. For over 2 months, I have been researching, testing, learning, and applying these systems in real time. The avatar is not separate from the work. It is part of the work. The cards, the glossary definitions, the reverse side explanations, the visual geometry, and the language structure all belong to one continuous architecture. I am not posting disconnected content. I am building structural inevitability from the beginning. That means every element is designed to reinforce the same signal across time, across platforms, and across future expansion. This takes work, this takes discipline, and yes, it takes money. Even basic access to these tools is costing me hundreds of dollars each month, but that cost is part of the process of doing this correctly. I am practicing what I preach. I am documenting while building and building while learning, and the system is already becoming real. Last night, my dogs heard the avatar talking about how well they were doing, and they reacted like I was speaking to them directly. That is how powerful this technology has become. The identity layer is no longer theoretical. It is entering the lived environment. This is more than content. This is research in motion. This is identity under construction. This is structural alignment made visible. Presented by farrahferris, digital representative analytical architecture, research, music, and artwork by farrahferris, Signal Over Noise. See you all out there.